Hey everyone, welcome to another episode from Pro Engineering. This is the interior set from the Traxxas Unlimited Desert Racer, and you know, it's detailed enough. I think it looks pretty darn good, a bit on the glossy side, but for what most people are going to use the truck for, this is fantastic. I'm going to be a little more scale on the interior, so instead of designing a complete interior, which I find to be completely unnecessary, what we're going to do instead is just modify this one. I have a few panels here that will be dropped in place. This is the center control stack with a little shifter. And if you look closely at it, you can see that it has individual little knobs and switches. The switches are 0.75 millimeters thick, so they're very, very thin. And it's pretty unlikely that these are going to survive an FDM print, but if you do have a resin printer or from Shapeways, if you are going to go with the ultra detail plastic, this will look fantastic. That'll just drop in the center. We've also got this trimmed piece for the passenger side. So there's a couple of displays here for navigation, probably a little ham radio or some kind of tuner to contact the pit crew, and some other little two-way radio perhaps. And there's your little microphone. That will go right in here. And then on the driver's side of things, we've got the digital instrumentation area, 3 auxiliary gauges, and a couple of more switches right there that you can see, and some buttons with little lights, and that'll go there. There are also inserts that are going to pop into all of these areas for illumination, which we'll get to shortly. But what I wanted to talk about very quickly was that, so all of these little holes here, in fact I'll aim it at the light, are all open. So it's a little hard to see that, so you can't see all the holes are open. The reason for that is some 0.75 millimeter thick fiber optics. The holes are all 0.9 thick, so that should have no issue at all putting a 0.7 thick cable through them. And we're going to bundle them with a number of LEDs of different colors to change the lighting on the individual little lights here. However, we will use some standard LEDs to illuminate the gauges, the instrumentation, and the navigation data here. So the first thing we're going to do is prepare the interior. I am going to repaint the entire interior, so because of that, I'm going to peel off all of these decals. I removed the driver's heads because of course I have to paint, but also I'm not going to reuse them. So let me address that and then take off some of the leftover adhesive. The interior has been all de-adhesive. It took all the stickers off. And to get rid of all of the residue from the adhesive and to get rid of all of the adhesive left over from the stickers, I used WD-40 and let it sit overnight. By the next day, you just give it a couple of wipes with a paper towel and it comes right off. First thing I want to do is mark out where I would like to cut out the openings necessary for the fiber optics. So from right about here to right about there. I don't want to go too far because I don't want any openings visible. All right, just about here is about as far as we need to go. Yep, and then we'll keep it right on the inside. Very, very accurate we're cutting here, as you can see. Just about like that should be cut out. Remember that you can always cut away more later. If you overdo it, then you're a little bit out of luck. So we'll leave that to the side. For this one, you need to cut out all of the holes for the fiber optics as well as the gauges, and that's kind of a large area. As you can see, this notch doesn't quite, it lines up to it in this angle here. If you look at it from the side, you can see that it sticks up above, and that's because the roll bar goes in at an angle. So to do this, we're going to have to cut out a little bit low and then feed the fiber optics in at an angle. Really, I don't want to cut this area out here because that's going to massively reduce the structural integrity of this. I'm going to leave a little bar right here, just like that, because again, there's any way that I can keep some structural in here, I will do that. This all gets cut out and it'll stop right about here. And I will cut out the perimeter just like that. Pop this guy back on, you can see that it's all just about there. And lastly, we'll want to cut out the area for the displays And this will go, let's see here, right about here. We'll stop it. I want to keep some plastic right here because this is going to cause quite a lot of flexibility with this material. These are the inserts that will go into the driver's side and passenger side instrument panels. So you can see we have 3 gauges on the outer sides, and then we have a digital gauge or a digital panel right there in the center. Note there's a little hole right here. We'll talk about that later. And this is for the passenger side. So these are 2 large, I'll call them displays. I'm going to blank those out because I don't want to paint those. I do want to paint everything else black. And here at the rear, I've plugged off all the LED holes. This is a 5 millimeter LEDs, and that is a 3, 3, 3, and 3. Let's go ahead and paint these up. These have all been wired up. If you have any questions on how to wire this, if you are interested, there is a link in the description as well as on the screen right now to a video where I cover doing all of this. All right, so here is the driver's side and here is the passenger side. So it turns out that the left display is a map and the right display, the co-driver seems to be busy watching a fantastic YouTube channel. Anyway, let's move on. What we have right here is a 4 LED bank. You don't really have to do 4 LEDs. You don't have to do any of this really, but this is a 4 LED bank that I created to power the fiber optics. First things first, let's install these into their panels, but the panels have to go first into the interior. We will begin with the driver's side. I'm going to use the hot glue gun to put some hot glue there and right inside here, and maybe just a little bit up top, because I don't want to get too much on there. It'll be safer if I put more adhesive on from the back side. So let's do it, a little dab there. Don't dilly-dally because it's gonna cure. So we'll just drop this straight on top here. What we want to do is make sure that this slot lines up nicely, just like that. Here's the deal. Don't worry if, I'll try and zoom in here. You see how this slot doesn't really look correct? Don't worry about it because there is part of the roll cage that goes right through there. So what you don't want is to have this slot line up directly over the original slot. You want it to be ahead of that. Basically like that. Sorry, I thought I'd push record, but on the passenger side, you'll do the exact same as with the driver's side. And just make note that when you've got it in, pick it up like this and just confirm that these two are both roughly in the same spot. Once those are both cured, we'll flip this around just like this. Take our front side, probably have to have it upside down a little bit, and slot it in from the back. It's going to be a little tight right here. You can always trim that, but I don't think I have to. I think it'll just, there it goes, pops right in. Flip it over and just confirm that. And it might need a little bit of a push. Oh, cool. There it is. It's in. Now that that's in, you can come back around and properly secure the whole thing in the bezel. I've got that in place, and now let's move on to the passenger side. And again, I'm going to try my very best to do this on camera. Okay, we'll do that there. And this should eventually, if it goes far enough, it should eventually just pop in. Oh, you know what? It's getting caught right here. Let me take care of that. Okay, and that is all in. It's the stupidest thing. Okay. It's so dumb. All right. So again, like the other side, you want to go ahead and glue this all down. And remember, you don't want to fill any of the holes with hot glue if you're going to use the fiber optics. So now that everything is properly secured, I've run all the wiring. Next, we'll install the center console. Now, the center console does have a little shifter, but that looks kind of fragile, so that'll go in separately. We'll just put some hot glue here and right here, and then just go ahead and press it in place. This is pretty self-explanatory. You just want to make sure it's as even as possible. So that is installed. The next bit, if you're going to go down this path, is to wire the fiber optics. So each one of these holes is 0.9 millimeters, and that has been done because the fiber optics I'm going to use are 0.75. I purchased a 10-meter long roll for around $3 on eBay, so you're welcome to do that. Each one of those wires will be funneled into a little cap that I'll put onto these using a 5 millimeter in diameter, using a 5 millimeter internal diameter brass pipe. If you could care less about the wiring, you would just drop in the shifter into a little hole in there, which I can't see anymore, but I'm going to do that last. So the next thing I'm going to do now is go ahead and run the fiber optics. We've completed all of the fiber optics, and you might notice that we've added 1 or 2 things here on the back. Needless to say, all of the fiber optics are working, so let's go ahead and take a look at that. Okay, and with the lights on still, we'll turn these on. And we just do want to confirm that, in fact, every single one of these is operational, and it does appear that way. Sorry, it's not supposed to be that blurry. It is on camera. So yeah, they are all working. There is one fiber optic that is currently unattached, and that is this little guy here. If we zoom in underneath the fan light, we can see a little void. And the reason for that is because on my UDR, it does have operational fans. The voltage regulator for the fans has a little red light. So what I want to have done is that when the fans are on, that light right there comes on. Absolutely idiotic, but yeah, pretty much everything else for this project has been so why not? I do also have an insert coming here that will drop in to this area here, which will give it a little more detail on the steering wheel. It hasn't come in, so I'm going to ignore that, but it will be part of the dash set. I do have to install some heads now as I tossed the other ones, and these are the heads that we have chosen. They are nearly the exact same size as the original ones. These are the Wild Willy heads from Tamiya. They have been modified. This one here is still a male figure. This one here, however, has been painted to be a female. So the eyes have been elongated, so they're a little more cat eye. She's got some mascara, the little eyebrows. The cheeks are a little bit more pink, and more importantly, the nose has been trimmed down significantly. So it's much more slender and narrow than on Willy. And I must thank Jenny Moe for all of these pointers, because she has done this with much more success than I have, because she's far better at this than I in creating the female variant of the Wild Willy driver. So let's go ahead and just install these guys. I wanted to show the installation progress. You can see here underneath, everything's got enough clearance. The reason I'm not recording this is because I'm really trying to get this in here without damaging any of the drivers and all that. And really, to get this out, you have to do a lot more disassemblies, but I did want to show where we're at right now. Well, folks, the interior is in. It fit very well. One thing that I did have a problem with is that when I was trying to get this installed, the rear screw holes didn't want to line up, and I realized it was because I had disassembled half of the cage, so this cross member was around 20 millimeters higher than it was supposed to be. So just keep that in mind, because I was losing my mind for a minute there, and I think overall it turned out pretty good. Let's kill the lights, and the images are looking really washed out on camera. I can assure you that they're not. I mean, this map image looks awful, and that's not how it looks in person. The switch gear is killer. I'm loving this little addition to the fan light. If you look right there, now watch right now when I shut off the fans. And back on. That's ridiculous. That is about where we're at now. Drivers are looking very good in here. Obviously, the co-driver is not doing their job as they're watching me on YouTube, but who can blame them? I also completely forgot to show the installation of the shifter, and now it's installed, and I can't get to it anymore. So it just drops into a small hole that already exists in that particular location. Dab of glue and you're good to go. It's fairly small, but that's what the proportion was of the original decal. And I also wanted to get it to fit inside the shift gate. Anyway, folks, thank you all so much for watching. If you are interested in adding a tremendous amount of complexity and electronics and wiring to your otherwise perfect UDR, the links are in the description. Thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you soon.